Welcome everyone. We will be starting in about 5 minutes. Now, I have details on the picture. Hello and welcome everyone to the virtual forum on linking wild foods, biodiversity, and forest-based livelihoods towards an outlook of inclusive food systems in Asia in 2030. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Christina. I am from Insight Pact, and I will be your technical facilitator for today. So if you have any questions about Zoom or require any technical assistance, please feel free to privately message me and I will be assisting you. For this morning, we are going to have 3 language interpretations available. The main session will be conducted in English, but there will be interpretations for Bahasa Indonesia, Tagalog, and Bisaya. For the purposes of this session specifically, we are going to be using, I'm not sure what it's appearing at the bottom, but I will check that later and input that into the chat box. But if you would like to listen into this session in different language, please select the globe icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen and select the language of your choice. As we are expecting a more intimate session this morning, we are not going to be using the Q&A box. So if you have any questions, do input them in the chat and we will continuously monitor that and make sure that we are able to address your questions with our panelists for today. So that is all from me. And with that, I would like to pass the floor to Grant. And one quick note, this session is also going to be recorded. It will also be recorded in the various language interpretations. So for our recorders, please feel free to start recording. And with that, Grant, take it away.
Thank you, Christina. So hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Women in Youth Food Heroes, a side event of the virtual forum linking wild foods, biodiversity, and forest-based livelihoods towards an outlook of inclusive food systems in Asia to 2030. This forum is organized by NTFP-EP in partnership with the Swedish International Agricultural Network Initiative, or SIAN. My name is Grant Barakias, and I will be your host today. This morning, we will be hearing of the voices of women and youth about their experiences with wild foods and traditional food systems, and their role in women and youth-led initiatives on strengthening culture, biodiversity, and livelihoods. We will hear their stories and most especially their hopes and dreams towards a more inclusive and secure future. I am honored to introduce you to our moderators for this session. So first moderator is Maria Teresa Padilla Matibag, or Tess, Ms. Tess is providing support to operations and program of NTFP-EP Asia. She has a long professional social development work experience with local and international NGOs and UN agencies, ILO and UN Women, that provide support to marginalized sectors, the women, indigenous peoples, farmers, fisherfolk, and fisherfolks.
Nice. Okay.
Hello, I continue from Grant. I'm Mary Tobing. Selamat pagi dulu. Good morning, everyone. I'm Mary Tobing from NTFP Indonesia. I will be joined with Miss Tess as a co-host.
Hello.
Hello, Miss Tess.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Happy to be here and greeting all of you a belated Happy Women's Day. Selamat Hari Perempuan Internasional. Miss Tess?
Yeah, Happy Women's Day to you too, Mary.
Thank
I'm
you.
happy to be moderating this session with you. We are glad to have this open space dedicated to women and the youth. Let me now start introducing our first keynote speaker. Josefa Carino Tauli, or Sefa, is an indigenous Ibaloy Kakanai Igorot youth from the Cordillera, Philippines. She is currently a member of the steering committee of the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, or the GYBN, which is the official youth constituency to the UN Convention on Biological Diversity. CEPA is an active advocate for meaningful youth engagement and respect for Indigenous peoples' rights and knowledge. She is also an honorary member of the ICCA Consortium, which is an international organization dedicated to promoting appropriate recognition and support for territories and areas conserved by Indigenous peoples and local communities. Within the consortium, she co-chairs the group Youth for Territories of Life. So let us now listen to Cefa from the Cordillera, which is the northern part of the Philippines. Good morning, Cefa.
Good morning, Tess, and thank you so much for that introduction. I'm very glad to be here today talking about something I really love, which is food. I'm also happy to have the unique opportunity to talk to you straight from my hometown, which is the ancestral lands of the Ibaloy people here in Baguio City, Philippines. So yes, just a bit more about me and where I'm from. These are a few photos from my home region in the Cordillera, where it's mountainous and where our weather is usually cold. We have many pine trees, and indigenous families grow rice on terraces like you see here, as well as many other fruits and vegetables. And we also have very good coffee. There are animals raised in the backyards for traditional rituals. I come from a family of advocates for Indigenous people's rights, and I'm slowly learning to become one also. A lot of what I do is to bring the priorities of youth and Indigenous peoples to international decision-making spaces about biodiversity, like the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity. But aside from that, I also just really like being at home and learning from about my culture and about the environment here, like the birds. So yes. So just to quickly introduce my organizations, I'm a member of the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, or GYBN, which is a youth-led global network of individuals and organizations that are active on biodiversity. We also coordinate youth participation, as I said, in the Convention on Biological Diversity. So we bring youth voices to these spaces. Over the 10 years since we've been founded, we have now become a global movement with members and chapters all over the world. And collectively, we've been working towards youth-led capacity building and empowerment, advocacy and campaigning, as well as mobilization and actions. I'm also a member of the ICCA Consortium, and I just wanted to talk to you a bit about the ICCA Consortium, which is a organization. It's an international organization dedicated to promoting the appropriate recognition and support for areas and territories that are being conserved by Indigenous peoples and local communities. So these territories are also referred to as ICCAs, or Territories of Life. And the ICCA Consortium also has global membership in 80 countries. And in the ICCA Consortium, we have a youth group called Youth for Territories of Life, which is a figurative space where young people in the consortium can dialogue about ICCAs and how to defend them and safeguard them. Yes, so that's just a bit about my organization. So on to food. This is my father's hometown. It's a small municipality called Basao, which is found in Mountain Province here in the Cordillera. And it's an indigenous Kankanaey community where indigenous culture is very much alive, but alongside introduced colonial and modern institutions. And in Basao, the food in Basao is very good. The cooking is very mindful. There's a food ethic that really values the nutrients in the food, and we make sure that nothing is wasted. And the food is healthy and clean. It's good enough to serve and to share with other families. And it's good enough to be offered to the unseen spirits and the ancestors who guide us, right? And last year, I assisted in an initiative to document our heirloom recipes of the Cordillera in a cookbook called that you can see here. And I wanted to share that among these recipes is a dish called tungba, which is a dish of freshwater crabs, salt, and pounded rice that is fermented to produce a tasty dish that can be eaten with vegetables. In the past, this dish, tongba, helped people cope with a lack of food during hard times. And traditionally, when a first child is born, tongba is prepared and served to offer the nutrition that is needed for the nursing mother, because it's said to promote milk production. But the quality of tongba is greatly determined by the source of the crabs, right? And when the river got polluted by small-scale mining operations in the vicinity, the production of tungba was also affected because it was difficult to find a nearby source of good crabs. So reflecting on this, we actually had a visioning exercise. We asked ourselves what changes are needed to revitalize the tungba and what would our food systems look like such that heritage food like this dish are still kind of being served and eaten. So this is what I'm going to be sharing with you today, this vision. These visions are actually applicable to communities all over Asia, which is a vision for 2030 that is rooted in healthy landscapes, in nutritious food, and in indigenous values. Okay, so first, our food systems have a lot, of course, to do with what we eat, our diet, which is maybe the first thing that we think of when we think of food. A challenge of today is that many of our diets are transitioning now to very highly processed foods. But just like with tungba, the vision is for our diet to be able to show the strong connection of the people to our land and to nature, right? And for this to happen, our diets should be diverse and nutritious. It should not be wasteful, and it should come from the bounty of healthy lands and waters. Next, food also has a lot to do with culture. Culture that is rooted in the land, belonging to the community, and respectful of the unseen. Unfortunately, today, there are many threats to indigenous and local knowledge and values. These threats include assimilation, urban migration, for instance, and loss of our languages. And we need to address these threats because a thriving food system really depends on a thriving culture, right? And especially, we also need to especially ensure that our knowledge is being passed down from generation to generation. Now, when it comes to the environment, our food system also relies on a thriving environment. But unfortunately, we are losing biodiversity now faster than ever before. We need to recognize the importance of a healthy food environment, just like how it is with the clean river that produces fresh crabs, for instance. And we need to strive for a connectedness with nature that does not value profit over community and over nature's well-being. We need to be able to learn to be and live in harmony with nature. Next, a good food system relies on sustainable and regulated economies. We need to provide incentives and funding support for grassroots food initiatives, for family farmers, for small-scale producers. Unfortunately, women, indigenous peoples, and the poor are disproportionately affected by the loss of traditional livelihoods. And so these need to be actively supported. Next, food really relies on technology that is environment friendly and used appropriately, with the well-being of people in mind. Many technologies emerging have trade-offs that negatively impact communities and nature. And so these kinds of technologies, which are shallow and potentially destructive, should be avoided. And finally, in policy, our policies need to be able to secure our rights to land, especially for indigenous peoples and local communities, and they must respect indigenous and local knowledge, right? And this is true for all levels, whether it's at the local level, at the national level, or at the global level. Our policies need to not be repressive. They need to strengthen not just our food security, but also our food sovereignty. And our policies should also protect our rights to lands and resources, right? So with that, what is the role that we as youth and as women, as indigenous peoples, what do we play? What role do we play in making this a reality? Well, it's a very central role, and initiatives that do not meaningfully involve us will not succeed, right? So for youth, for instance, we are very creative, passionate, solutions-oriented people. We're ready to take charge of our future, and uh, we we have the capability to lead now, today, not just in the future. And so we must also kind of take seriously our roles as future stewards of the earth, and our roles in transforming the systems of today to be what we need them to be for our future. Now, for women, women are also very key agents of change. Women manage water, fuel, food, forests, and agriculture all over the world. In fact, women produce 60 to 80% of the food in developing countries, and women are the links between generations, and we play a key role in teaching children about the knowledge that has been gained over generations, right? And with indigenous peoples and local communities, uh, when we do not include them, none of this also can be achieved, because indigenous peoples and local communities are stewards, or they take care of the majority of the world's biodiversity. They defend nature, they care for their territories of life, right? And indigenous peoples have very deep knowledge that is learned through practice, which really allow us to live in a way that is in harmony with nature, and that is sustainable, including through our traditional foods. So just as a final point, youth, women, and indigenous peoples were often quite described as marginalized groups or vulnerable groups, right? And while this is true, because there are many systemic barriers that exclude us from decision making, and that make us vulnerable to the impacts of environmental harm, it's important not to internalize these words, because the truth is that, as I explained, we are central and we are powerful in transforming our food systems and in achieving a future that is in harmony with nature. So let's not forget that. And with that, I end my short presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. Yaman ka na kayo.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Stefa. That was an inspiring talk. You showed us how the youth are involved and their voices are listened to in global movements on biodiversity and the territories of life. You shared an interesting personal story of your traditional food, your heirloom recipes of the Cordillera, and the health benefits for the nursing mothers, among others. It's interesting for me also because I have a baby grandson being breastfed by his mother. It enlightens us to know about about your vision of the food systems, inculcating healthy landscapes, nutritious food, and indigenous values. It is important to know also that we know how to take action and help the women, the youth, the IPLCs in the various aspects to keep wild foods in our diets, culture, the environment, economics, technology, and policy. Thank you again, Sefa. Now, let me call on the next speakers. We will have two speakers who are women youth from ICCs in the Philippines. The first speaker, let me call on, introduce Miss Colleen Sumonda, 21 years old, married and has two children. She's an active Higaonon youth of Silao, Anangi, Itoy, Amosig, Higaonon tribal community, which is located in Barangay San Luis, Malitbog, Bukidnon. At the age of 13, she was married through panuyo, a Higaonon tradition of couple matching. She was raised in Pulahon, Hagpa, Pasugong. Her husband is a budding young chieftain. Colleen joined various online engagement about slow food movement, including a photo essay contest where she featured Labo as her food entry that gained 1,000 likes and reacts. She is also the bookkeeper in a community-based enterprise that produces citronella oil. Let us now hear the voice of Colleen from the Higaonon tribe in Mindanao, south of the Philippines. Maayong buntag, Colleen. A video will be shown.
Mahinungdanon ang tradisyonal nga pagkaon nga gikan sa lasang para kanako nga usa ka higaonon tungod kay kung tigutom o tigkauhol mauman ang among dali nga madaganan ug nakabase diri ang among panginabuhi, kultura o pagtuon sa tribo. Ang mga tradisyonal nga pagkaon nga among gakakuha sa lasang ug gakakaon hangtod karon mao ang labo, ubod sa ratan, ubod sa pula, usa, langgam, baboy halas ug uban pang mananap ug tanom sa yuta ug katubigan. Apan adunay babag nga among nasinati sa paggamit og tradisyonal nga mga pagkaon. Kontrolado na ang among panguha sa nagkalaing-laing mananap o tanom sulod sa among lasang. Tungod sa balaod sa DNR dugang pa usapod kahagit nga ang mga kabatanunan karon dili na kaila ug kabalo mo kwisiso sa mga pagkaon, ang uban ila kining ikaulaw ang pagkaon ug mga lagutmon, ambaw ug uban pa. Ang akong pangandoy nga ang mga kabatanunan matudluan sa mga tradisyonal nga pamaagi sa pagproseso niini nga mga pagkaon aron dili kini mawala ug mapadayon sa sunod nga henerasyon. Unta adunay panagtigom sa mga katigulangan ug mga kabatanunan aron hisgutan ang among IKSP sa pagkaon nga makita sa lasang. Inubanan sa suporta sa komunidad, LGU, NGO ug uban pang mga ahensya.
Colleen, you can speak now. Okay. So, The
May buntag sa inyong tanan. Salamat sa pag-imbita kanako aron mapaipita ang mga lumad nga pagkaon. Ako isip po sa kahigaunon ngayot, malipayon nga napita. Malipayon nga napakita kaninyo ang mga tradisyonal. Manghinaot ko nga dili kini malimtan sa nako nga higaon. Og dili kini ikaulaw ilabi na karon nga panahon. Naay ikaulaw na nila ilang mga pagkaon nga lagutmon kay sa ilang pero ako proud higaonon ko. Tungod kay mao kini ang pagkaon sa mga katigulangan ng panahon.
Namana pa namin mga aming mga dinuno.
Thank you, Colleen. That was a good sharing of your traditions. And Colleen mentioned about the traditional indigenous food that they have been using, but she is worried that, and she's happy to share about their traditional food that still exists up to now. However, she fears that these are forgotten and that the youth some youth are ashamed about it. But she, Colleen, is a proud Higaonon, still using and the traditional and promoting the traditional foods because this is the food of their ancestors. So thank you, Colleen. You still have something to say, Colleen?
Higiwalay sa payan.
Okay. Thank you, Colleen, for being with us, and we are happy to see the video you showing the traditional food of the Higaonon. Later on, some people may ask questions regarding the Higaonon food traditions in our open forum later. Thank you. So let me now call on our next youth leader from the island of Luzon. Cristel is a 19-year-old Dumagat youth leader in Quezon Province. Her dream is to be a great teacher someday to help her community, especially her fellow Dumagat children, in the aspect of education, preserving culture and tradition, and protecting Mother Nature. She also loves doing activities engaging communities because for her, continuous learning starts within it. Let me now call on Cristel, a Dumagat youth leader from the island of Luzon. Magandang umaga, Cristel. I think a video will be shown also.
Magandang araw po. Ako po si Cristel Queres, isang katutubong kabataan ng tribong Tumagat at nais ko rin pong ibahagi kung gaano nga ba talaga kahalaga o kaimportante ang katutubong pagkain o ang wal na pagkain sa aming pamayanan. Mahalaga ang mga ito para sa amin sapagkat hindi lamang ito kasama sa mga pang-araw-araw na pagkainan ng pamilyang katutubo, kundi isa rin ito sa mga bagay na nakakapagpanatili ng tunay at kakaibang ganda ng kalikasan. Kung saan sa kalikasan na rin nakaugnay ang aming kultura. Dahil sa kalikasan na rin mismo nagmula ang kaisipan ng aming mga ninuno kung paano ito natuklasan at kung paano nila ginawa ang mga proseso nito na hanggang ngayon ay amin pa rin ginagawa at alam pa rin ng hanggang ngayon kahit ng mga kabataan. Ang mga katutubong pagkain o wild na pagkain din ay isa sa mga pangunahing itinuturing na aming pagkakakailanlan bilang tribo. Halimbawa, kapag sinabing pinutos, sasabihin agad na ay galing sa katutubuan sa tribong dumagat ang salitang iyan o ang pagkain na iyan. Kaya kung mawawala ang mga ito ay maaari ring magkaroon ng posibilidad na malaking bahagi ng aming kultura ang maglaho na rin. At dito po papasok yung mga malaking hadlang kung pinag-uusapan ang mga katutubo, wild na pagkain, samut-saring buhay at kabuhayan sa buhay ng mga katutubo dahil na rin sa mga pagpasok ng mga makabagong pamamaraan na na-adapt na rin ng mga katutubo at napapag-iwanan na ang kung ano ang aming nasa kultura. Nawawala na ang mga pagpapahalaga sa mga ito at kasama na rin sa nawawala unti-unti ang sentro ng kultura na pagbabahaginan na kung saan ang kahalagahan nito sa amin, kahalagahan ng pagbabahaginan ay para na ding pagpapahalaga sa Diyos sa kay makidepend sa mga biyaya na ibinibigay niya sa atin, lalo na kapag sa pagbabahagi sa iba pang mga iyong katribo kahit na sa pinakamalayong lugar ay nagpapaalala na malalim pa ang ugnayan mo sa Kanya at malalim pa ang pakahulugan mo sa iyong kultura. Kasabay ng pagkakaroon ng mga kasanayan, lalong-lalo na sa mga pag-oorganisa sa hanay ng mga kabataan at kababaihan, na magkaroon ng mga hakbangin kung paano ito mapapanatili. Dahil sa ngayon nga po ay may kakulangan pa rin, lalo na sa mga kasanayan, sa pag-oorganisa, upang mas lalo itong pagtuunan bilang bahagi ng buhay ng mga katutubo. Maraming salamat po.
Do you want to add some point, Ms. Tess?
Yeah. Thank you, Crystal. If you have some more things to say about that video, if not, I can give a gist of what she said. She mentioned about the importance of indigenous food that helps in nurturing the environment, which is from where their culture is connected, and where their ancestors learned about growing, processing their indigenous food. She shared that some food are associated with their culture. She mentioned about the food pinutus, from the that indicates or shows that people know that it comes from the dumagats. So it is also important. The wild food is also an important aspect in their as sources of their livelihoods and income. However, she mentioned that challenge of losing their indigenous food, that is also losing their indigenous culture. So it's important that they are given support, or that they also have trainings and empowerment or capacity building to be able to keep their indigenous food and cultures intact. So I think, Crisel, may sasabihin ka pa? I can translate.
Nagpapasalamat lang po ako dahil nagkaroon po ako, nabigyan po ako ng pagkakataon na may bahagi ko rin kung ano yung mga pagkain katutubo dito sa amin, ayun na yung kahalagahan para sa amin kahit na may mga pagsubok pa rin na dumadating para ito mapanatili nga. Katulad po ng mga nasabi ko kanina na dito po sa amin may na para pong nawawala na nga talaga sa aming kultura na lalo na sa mga kabataan na yung mga katutubong pagkain kahit na nagsisidagsaan na yung mga modernong pagkain ay mahalaga pa rin dahil yun nga po ay parte ng kultura. At syempre po bilang isang katutubong kabataan na riyan po yung mga tungkulin namin para ito'y mapanatili kasama ng syempre po mga kababaihan ng tribo. Ilan po, maraming salamat.
Yeah. Maraming salamat din, Cristel. Thank you, Cristel. Cristel just shared that she's happy to be able to have this opportunity to share their culture, their food, and the challenges they face in keeping the their indigenous food system and cultures intact and living up to this time, despite the challenge of having been exposed to other food outside of their communities. So thank you again, Cristel.
Oh, thank
Mary,
you.
yeah, thank you. Take it on, Mary.
Thank you, Miss Tess. And thank you to Stefa, Colin, and Crystal for your message and sharing. You are all of you young, energetic, creative, concerned, and respect to culture and environment, especially to the wild food. We need you to continue save the world. It is so great to hear about the activities of engineers youth in Philippines, from the north to the south. Now let me add on the message of the SEFA that we join support the youth, the women and IPLCs as the central force to transform our food system to live in harmony with nature. Now from Philippines, let us go to Sabah, Malaysia, to hear from Junia Anilik. Junia is Canadian from Penang, Sabah. She has been working full-time in PACOS since 2018 in the research unit as technical coordinator, where she does community research and documentation of sources. She also regularly supports other programs, including resource management, community organizing, and social economic. She also is a member of the Sabah Engineers Youth Council. They have training program on natural farming and food processing. They training community-based enterprise and market the product to the wider public. The product include wild and traditional food processed by communities. Then they promote and market to increase their livelihood. Welcome, Junia. Anda boleh mulaikan. Silakan, Mbak Junia.
Makasih, Bu Mary. Okay, slide. Okay, so good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for NTFP for giving us the opportunity to share our experience related to wild food. Actually, a colleague of mine, Irene, was supposed to present today, but due to clashing timetables, she's also preoccupied with another online training now with the community. But I also work closely with her, and I hope I can share these experiences with you. So my name is Junia. I am a Kadazan from Pinampang and working with PACOS, which works with indigenous peoples, mostly in Sabah, which is in the eastern Borneo state of Malaysia. First slide. Okay. As most of you already know, with the shared experience of indigenous people, food, especially wild food, is an important source of identity and culture of indigenous people, as it is related to our forests and environment. Wild food also plays a big role in terms of food security, especially in providing much needed nutrition for communities' diet. And women especially plays an important role in this, as they are the ones who decide what goes on the table of the family. So if the mother from early on always use ingredients collected from the wild, then the children will also have the nutrition, knowledge, and taste bud of wild food. In terms of socioeconomy, indigenous communities have used wild food as a source of livelihood income, whereby besides selling the raw ingredients, they also sell already processed food from wild food, and this is important as it adds value to wild food, as some of these types of food can be difficult to acquire and they have very limited quantities when you harvest them. However, most of the food innovation and processing is still through preserving or pickling, but entrepreneurs now are starting to be more creative, like making them into jams, snacks, ice creams, and many other types of food. Some examples of popular or common wild food in our community, as you can see in the pictures, include wild fruits. So we have like wild mangoes, this bambangan, durian, red durian, tupolo, and wild rambutan. We also have like lots of vegetables, ferns. This tutan is like a type of leafy vegetable. Dokarok living in the rivers. Maybe some of you will recognize is maybe the same with your community. And we also use lots of heart of the palm. And one of the things that I said just now, like preserving, is this tuhau or wild ginger. So the stalks of the wild ginger, they preserve using lime. So that's one of the popular food here. And we also, of course, eat uh, fauna, maybe insects like from wild honey, and also like this sago worm, butod. Okay, next slide. However, we also have a lot of challenges in terms of preserving wild food, which comes from actually internal and external from the community. First and foremost is, of course, destruction or deforestation, as it causes this destruction of habitats of wild food. In our community, deforestation used to be logging, but now even when all the big trees have been taken, our forest is now being transformed into plantations and farms for commercial plants. Although some of this conversion is also from the community members themselves, but they are fueled and promoted by government schemes and policies. For example, government gives free terracing of land for rubber planting, and they also subsidize fertilizers and pesticides. Besides that, large-scale projects such as mega dams and shrimp farms and cattle farms destroys forests where wild food can be found. The second challenge that we have is the movement or resettlement of communities, which can be an external and internal threat, whereby communities are forced to move when their territories are taken for projects such as dams and highways, and also establishment of forest reserve. But also, internally, communities are migrating out from their village to towns to look for job, education. And when they move out, when they go out to from the village, they are detached from the environment, and thus the wisdom of wild food is also lost. So with this so-called development and movement, it impacts our youths, whereby the skills to eat, knowledge on the types of food, and the taste bud has changed for the youth. Maybe not all of the youths, but most have now have very limited knowledge on wild food and how to cook and prepare it. As communities also become more urbanized, the choices of wild food sources also decreases, and most of the time they want to have more convenient sources of food. So it's more convenient to buy in sundry shops or supermarkets. There is also a pressure to fit in for communities, and sometimes they see city people as to be more successful. And one of the first thing that they try to copy is, of course, the food. So they want to try all the new food, like what the in the cities are taking, and no longer they want to eat the in the village. And lastly, we do have new laws that prevent communities to enter the forest reserve, which dampens harvesting of wildfood. But not all of this impact is negative, as communities can still harvest for personal use. But of course, they will still be like, that's why dampen, because they will be afraid that they might be caught by enforcers. Next slide. So our dreams for the future of wild food is, first, of course, the forest and environment is protected, but not just making them into conventional forest reserves, but maintained for communities use, like in the form of ICCS or community forests. But this will only happen if there's enough awareness of the importance of forests, and I think promotion of wild food can play an important role in giving that conservation value. Second is the promotion of integrated farming, whereby we have wild food gardens, which balances agriculture and forests. But we also hope that more initiative and support can be given to farmers and communities that can directly contact consumers. Uh, in our organization, we are currently developing an online market system where community products, including food harvested from the wild, are sold to the public. But we also give them some instructional videos and step-by-step guides on how to use the ingredients. And this system is based on pre-order, so the quantities can be harvested in limited quantities and with no wastage. Which brings to the next point, where there needs to be more innovation, documentation, and promotion concerning wild foods, maybe through social media, creating new dishes and products from wild food. So platforms such as what we have now, and also events and programs like the Slow Food Movement, youth sessions, demonstrations, and marketing can really create awareness on the use of wild food among youths and children. Next slide. Ah, next slide. The Okay, thank the last slide. So actually, that's all for my slide. So this picture is a cooking competition of traditional food that we held during our Sabah Indigenous Youth Gathering that we had way back in 2019 post-pandemic, where youths came from all over Sabah to share their traditional food to other youths, which we hope we can carry out again in person soon. So again, thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Julia. Yes, very interesting presentation. Nanti bisa dikasih lihat produknya ya. With you, do you have product? Maybe we can see later.
Now?
And after.
Yeah, I'll take it downstairs.
Just prepare for the product, and later you can talk about it, right? Okay, for our next speaker is from Akar Foundation, Indonesia. Miss Paramasti. Wait.
You can call me just Dinar.
Oh, yeah, I just Dinar, yeah. Miss Paramasti Ayukus Dinar, or usually call it Dinar, born and raised in the city of Bengkulu on May 7, 1994. Young, very young, right? She took her last education at Bengkulu University with public administration study program. She has worked at the Akar Foundation since 2014. And since 2018, Dinar has been the coordinator for the Civil Society Coalition for Tenure Justice in Indonesia up to present. Dinar, it's your time. Silakan, Dinar.
Terima kasih, Mbak Mary. Thank you, Mbak Mary. Hello, everyone. My name is Dinar. I am from Akar Foundation. It's such an honor to be able and speaking in front of you all, and I would like to say Happy Women's International Day for all of us. Long life women's struggle. Okay, guys. So today I will share my experience work in Bengkulu. Bengkulu is one province in Sumatra Island, Indonesia. So I put my presentation here straight to the point with the title "Woman Against Hidden Hunger." That what we do since 2018 in Akar Foundation. So next. So Akar Foundation is an NGO in Indonesia that encourages the realization of the sovereign rights of the people through the protection, preservation, empowerment, and management of natural resource diversity, independently, justice, social welfare, democracy based on human rights and gender justice. And then for more than 10 years, Akar Foundation has been concerned with agrarian issues and their relation to livelihood strategies to intervention on local food by best living space governance. So that what Akar do in more than 2 decades. Okay. In 2015 till 2021, Akar Foundation, together with the community, success in obtaining the right access to the living space by social forestry scam. And we also conduct a research related to the value chains and economy relation in rural communities after they get the access to the forest. Like Indonesian have many kind of policies that recognize people rights in the forest. And then, so from this research, the various economic phenomena that maybe occur in general appear in other place, like patron-client, and then the feminization of debt. I call it feminization of debt. And then the third is hidden hunger. So the patron-client phenomena in the several villages that Akar assistant is one phenomena depend economic depend between small farmer to the middleman. Middleman it's who had a lot of capital and power in one village, and there is more, not just one middleman in the village. So the patron client phenomena is like dependent economy between small farmer to the middleman. And then the patronage relationship between small farmer with the middleman, it's make a form like a system of social security based on kindship. So there is that is biggest problem in the village. And then the feminization of debt, it maybe occur in the other place, yeah. But the feminization of debt in the like kind of livelihood strategies that is mostly carried out by women in the village, but it also a new form of consumption. Like if they won't buy things that they desire, they just can earn by going into debt. So then nothing impossible if they want things they desire all of the time. And then the third is hidden hunger. So in 2018, Akar Foundation, together with the Inggris Pena Institute, do a research about food waste system in community forest farmer family, because after they get the access to the forest, we found that there is some problem about the food system in the householder. So the hidden hunger that occurs among the hutan kemasyarakatan or social forestry cannot be read by medical health perspective, but rather from a production perspective. So the hidden hunger phenomena is changes the food system where they previously produced their own food. Now they become active consumption. So okay, next slide. Okay, so this is the premise after we do research. The first premise is the relationship between woman and the forest has an impact on closer relation between woman and food supply market. Has led to a transition in the provision of foodstuff from self-sufficiency from natural and cultivated to being completely depend on the market foodstuff distribution chains. And then the second, in changing the cropping pattern to agriculture that does not involve woman in reproductive process that is separate from the production process. So this is what we capture by the research. And next, so therefore, we start rebuilding the foodway system by building a local food demonstration plot by participatory action research. So we do research with the several women's community in 5 village, and then they do their own research in the village. And then we building a food demonstration plot. So the demonstration plot that we have made based on their list of their nutrient like carbohydrate and the vitamin fiber. So they plan in the demonstration plot with the alternative food or local food, or I have a list of wild food in their demonstration plot. And then they building a food demonstration plot, not just in their home, but they also build a demonstration plot in the land of village and then land of social forestry. And then they also building networks between communities in the one regency, just one regency this year. And then the third, building local food based on best business unit. And then they also make a business unit for sell their plan in the demonstration plot. And then the different thing that we do in here, because we do intervention to this activity directly targets is a fundamental change in several aspects, such as health. So we try to recovery nutrition and health, especially women and children, through the fulfillment of micronutrients. Because we, together with the community and with the health official in the village, found several children in the village who had health problems, which indicate that the disease was caused by a lack of nutritional needs, such as like mineral and then vitamin A and D. So that's why we do intervention in health aspect. And then we also do intervention in household financial, because it is can control the household consumption and expenditures, because the market invention it's became a very worse disease beside the health. Yeah. And then the third, we have intervention to local food. So we not just plan with one commodities, but many commodities like diversification, family foods, resorts with local food, like that I said before. So I think just it is my presentation slide, and thank you for your attention, and thank you Mbak Mary.
Terima kasih Dina, presentasinya menarik sekali. Itu mau bilang ya bahwa dari hutan kita bisa dapat menghidupi atau memenuhi kebutuhan hidup sehari-hari ya. Karbohidrat, protein, gula dan sebagainya ya. Dan teman-teman bikin satu plot untuk membuat itu di sekitar mereka, dan mereka bisa lihat itu ya. Menarik sekali.
Thank you.
Terima kasih. Okay, our next speaker is Susilawati. Susilawati, 36 years old, is more mature than other speaker. Yeah, she's a mother of the 3 children. She's sagu producer, especially for snack from sagu. She's lives at Sungai Tohor, Kecamatan Tebing Tinggi, Timur, Kepulauan Meranti, Riau, Indonesia. She likes to involve in improvement activity. She was volunteer in Walhi Riau, enjoys with working on environmental issues and natural resource management. Until now, she still consumes wild food from around the village, coast, and the forest. And she just giving birth about 1.5 months ago. Please correct me, Bu Sisi. Baby. Just giving birth baby around 1.5 months ago. And she will share stories about the wild food she ate after giving birth. Before we watching, okay, here Ibu Susi we ask, but before she present, let's see the video of Ibu Susi wild food story.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Nama saya Susilawati, biasa di kampung saya dipanggil Uci. Umur saya 36 tahun. Saya tinggal di Desa Sungai Tohor, Kecamatan Tebing Tinggi Timur, Kepulauan Meranti, Riau, Indonesia. Pekerjaan saya ibu rumah tangga, tetapi saya ada sedikit usaha kecil-kecilan mengolah sagu menjadi salah satu makanan. Di kampung kami biasa mengonsumsi makanan liar yang terdapat di dalam hutan ataupun di pinggir pekarangan. Contohnya seperti ini, daun mempelas, tenggek burung, pegagan, lempuyang, mahang putih, medang pelara, medang lundu, umbut palas, setunggul, kekait, dan banyak lagi. Biasanya kami mengonsumsi ini sebagai lalapan, fungsinya untuk menjaga kesehatan tubuh kita. Ini juga salah satu tanaman liar yang biasanya kami konsumsi. Ini namanya terung bimbang, fungsinya sangat bagus untuk kesehatan mata. Ini juga biasanya kami bikin gulai belacan. Ini sangat enak. Campuran ikan teri, telur puyuh, terung bimbang ini. Ini juga salah satu tanaman liar yang biasa kami konsumsi. Namanya pegagan. Dia sangat baik untuk menjaga kesehatan tubuh kita. Kalau yang ini namanya seletup jalar. Dia bisa juga sebagai lalapan, tapi harus dengan cara direbus dulu, nggak bisa makan begitu saja. Yang ini juga salah satu tanaman liar yang biasanya kita konsumsi dan menjadi salah satu lalapan favorit saya, namanya lempuyang. Yang diambil adalah umbinya, tapi kalau bisa yang muda, karena kalau yang tua itu keras. Nih, dicuci dulu, baru bisa langsung kita makan.
This is local name terong asam.
Yang ini namanya terong asam. Dan ini juga salah satu tanaman liar yang biasanya tumbuh di sekitar perkarangan rumah. Cara konsumsi biasanya kami membuat ini sebagai bahan campuran sambal belacan yang bisa nantinya kita makan menggunakan lalapan yang ada di sini. Nah, ini adalah contoh sebagian makanan liar yang biasa kami konsumsi. Baik untuk menjaga kesehatan, apalagi setelah melahirkan. Ini namanya tenggek burung. Yang kita konsumsi adalah bagian lembutnya saja. Ini. Yang ini medang pelara, juga bagian lembutnya saja yang dikonsumsi. Ini kekait. Ini pegagan dan ini lempuyang. Cara mengonsumsi tanaman liar ini cukup dengan cara mencuci sampai bersih, lalu dimakan begitu saja. Pegagan dan lempuyang ini adalah salah satu lalapan favorit saya. Tanaman lalapan seperti ini masih mudah kami dapatkan di sekitar pekarangan rumah, kecuali medang pelara sama kekait ini agak jauh di hutan, tetapi kalau suami bekerja di hutan, pulangnya bisa dibawakan. Tantangan untuk memproduksi olahan sagu sekarang ini yang kami rasakan adalah bahan bakar, yaitu kayu. Soalnya kayu sekarang ini sudah semakin jauh, butuh proses untuk mengambil kayu di dalam hutan. Harapan saya ke depannya agar sumber pangan lokal ini ataupun sagu bisa tetap dilestarikan, supaya masyarakat tetap bisa mengecapi dan sebagai penopang hidup masyarakat yang ke depannya.
Halo Ibu Susi atau Bu Uci. Halo. Bersama bayinya. Tidak kedengaran suaranya. Masih di unmute. Boleh di unmute masih. Oke.
Halo.
Halo Bu Susi, apa kabar?
Ya, baik Bu.
Ini dari kampung langsung?
Iya, iya.
Oh, ini anaknya sudah berapa tahunnya?
3 bulan.
Oh, 3 months ya, the baby is now 3 months. Jadi selama ini Ibu Susi itu mengkonsumsi semua tanaman yang tadi disampaikan itu ya?
Iya.
Iya. Iya.
Iya.
Setelah melahirkan ya. Setelah melahirkan mengkonsumsi semua tanaman-tanaman itu untuk menjaga kesehatan dan untuk bayinya.
Kalau kami di sini Bu, habis melahirkan ataupun enggak, pasti tetap mengkonsumsi makanan liar itu.
Ya. Jadi baik melahirkan walaupun sehari-hari tetap mengkonsumsi tanaman liar itu ya. Untuk kesehatan. Ya, apalagi masa pandemi sekarang ini ya. Semakin banyak konsumsi pangan liarnya nih. Gitu kan khususnya di sana untuk menjaga ketahanan tubuhnya. Ya, delay kali ya.
Apa Bu?
Selama masa COVID sekarang ini, apakah semakin meningkat mengkonsumsi tanaman-tanaman liar itu?
Oh iya Bu, itu harus agar kesehatan tubuh tetap terjaga.
Oke, selalu sehat ya. Oke, Bu Susi, terima kasih untuk presentasinya tadi udah dibuat, jadi cantik ya sekarang presentasinya. Akan dengarkan di bagian setelah ini kita buka forum untuk tanya jawab. Nanti jika ada pertanyaan-pertanyaan Bu Susi akan saya sampaikan ke Bu Susi. Jadi tetap di situ ya.
Ya.
Oke, Miss Tess, Ibu Susi atau Uci said that not just when they after baby they eat all the oil food, but during every day, daily food they use it. They use to maintain their health. So like now in pandemic, they use it to protect their healthy like that. So now, we open the session. To you, Miss Tess.
Yeah. Thank you for that sharing from Malaysia and Indonesia. The Philippines have similar experiences as well. So now let's go on to the question and answer. If anybody posted a question or clarifications in our chat box, let me check.
I think
or if
from Rita.
So there are indeed some sharing in the chat box. So if anybody would want to speak, just raise your hand and ask the question from our panel who can respond immediately. But I think we only have a few minutes to spare before we close. If there's nobody.
Ibu Rita has hand. Ya Mbak Rita, Mbak Ito, silakan. Langsung saja sampaikan. In English ya Mbak?
Yeah. Thank you all, and I like it's woman, so it's very good, and food local. Okay. My question is, do you have experience on how to process like singkong, cassava, and change it to flour and change it to cookies? I would like to hear if you guys have, not guys, women, my friends, have experience on how the local community do that kind of exercise, and whether the cookies got acceptable, or how the people react to that local food cookies. Because usually, well, here in Indonesia, I live in Majenang in Cilacap, Central Java. Even in the mountain, very far away from the main street, you always can find cookies that it's very international cookies. So I was just wondering, where is our local food? I mean, where is our local root? And how? I mean, the small, the young, 2 years, 3 years, they all go to the warung, to the coffee shop, and buy the international food and forget about the local food. So I was just wondering if anybody can share about that. Thank you.
Okay. Maybe we can start from Junia. from Malaysia to answer the question?
Hi everyone.
Yeah.
So far I haven't heard of a cookie like how you usually think of cookie like with the chocolate chips like that. But our community are able to make it into chips. It's not when they process it straight from the tuber, but they made it into flour and then mix other um, food additive to make it nice and make it into chips. But I haven't. Yeah, it's a good question, Rita. But we have also made flour from banana to make we need a lot of banana to make small amount of banana flour. So we also still thinking of how to make it more economically viable.
Reading from the chat box, there are some sharing about how they make the cassava into a cookie, like the Sarawak Dayak. They call it tabaloy for the cassava cookie, and I think the Parara also has this modified cassava
Yes.
for the women's in Ayan. So there are a lot of information on the chat box, also sharing from the different communities. So maybe we can also hear from the communities in the Philippines or in Malaysia or in Indonesia, from the women speakers.
Again, sorry.
I think it's in response to the question about processing of the cassava into a flour, and then Junia was able to respond with that they made it into a chip. I think in the Philippines we also have a community producing cassava chips.
Maybe we can hear from other speaker.
Yeah.
The other have any pengalaman? Mbak Dina, Seva, do you want to do that here? Mbak Dina punya pengalaman untuk soal bagaimana membuat tepung singkong, kemudian tepung singkong dijadikan produk, dan bagaimana membuat produk itu untuk disukai atau dicintai oleh masyarakat.
Sayangnya belum, Mbak Mary, Mbak Rita.
Okay. Not yet have the experience for that. Mister, we have other thing from the chat box. We can check.
Yeah. I think most of them mentioning about coffee, wine.
Coffee, wine. Okay. Who wants to explain what is?
Actually, is coffee. Wine coffee is one of product from Akar with the community. So Akar have a business unit in Bengkulu to sell communities product like coffee, become drink, and then face mask. So the wine coffee is coffee, but through the fermentation process, more than 1 month, and then it's so strong. Mena,
bagaimana rasanya?
Kuat banget, Mbak.
Very strong wine.
Yeah, because wine. And then maybe Meina can give out the testimony of the wine coffee.
You're to test that, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, what other question? Coba kita lihat, cek. I think ada pertanyaan dari.
I think it would be good if our website will also include the different preparations for the different wild foods, like for cassava, so many things that came up here in the chat box. So that will be another action point for this discussion. So do you see other questions, Mary? Because if not, we can move on.
I saw question from Dazzle. How do we? Yeah, from Dazzle to Seva. How do we encourage youth to engage participant to important coalition and innovation like GYNBN and ICCA Youth. Can you, this is question to Seva. Thank you. How do we encourage youth to engage participant to important coalition and initiative? Seva?
Thank you for the question, Dazzle. I think there are a lot of there are very diverse organizations. I think it's a matter of finding an organization that focuses on the issues that you are passionate about and that really share your values, right? And these organizations exist at the local level, at the national level, at the global level. As for example, with GYBN and ICCA Youth, these networks are actually open for anyone under 35 to join. If you're interested, please email me. Well, at least for GYBN. As for the ICCA consortium, this is an association of organizations who are pushing for the full recognition of territories of life. If you are interested in being a member, you can also find many details on the ICCA consortium website. But yes, I think it's very important. This is something that Christelle also mentioned, for us to organize ourselves and to push for the issues that that are important to us, and take part in decision making also about issues that affect us. So thank you.
Thank you, Seva.
Yeah, maybe we can also hear a response from Colleen na kay i-share nga sa regarding tukol sa pagkain at saka engaging the communities, in the youth in your communities. Colleen, na kay i-share. Like ang inyong organization nag-produce og citronella oil, tama? Right? And aside from citronella, unsa pa ang iba nga produkto nga gihimo sa inyong community? Colleen.
Maybe there's trouble with
Yeah, maybe. Okay. So maybe later in the chat box or in the website, you can share more information about our communities from the women speakers we have now. So I think we can wrap up, and let me now take the opportunity to thank Sefa, Colleen, Christelle, Junia, Dinar, and Susie for for a good sharing. So let me just give a short synthesis. We heard voices of women from the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia. We heard them speak about their personal experiences and stories and researches projects on wild foods, the different wild foods of their communities, how they harvest, their processing, their preparations before eating, the importance of wild foods as part of their culture, as food security, for better health, and for their additional incomes and livelihoods. We also heard them share the challenges they face to preserve wild foods, to be part of their lives and cultures. Their challenges include deforestation, external threats of dams, logging, mining, losing the appreciation of wild foods by the youth with introduction of urban convenience food, laws that prevent communities to harvest wild foods in their forests. We also heard them about their dreams to preserve and keep the wild food as continuing as part of their lives and for others to appreciate them as well. They need support to protect their community forests, develop wild food gardens, have online market system connecting farmers to consumers, connecting communities to consumers, and be able to innovate, document, promote wild foods with new dishes, and raise awareness through using our online platforms such as this event, programs, and things like that. So may I ask you all, did you have a great time hearing the voices of these young women from different indigenous communities? Because I did. So thank you very much again for sharing and listening. Terima kasih, salamat, thank you. Mary, you may have something to share also.
I think it's all from you, Mistress. But I just want to say, you are all of your speaker, young and very, very creative. Your spirit, I can feel that and still continue that. I want to say thank you to all the speakers from Stefa, Oli, Nia, Dina, and Bu Susi. Sorry, it's time not enough to talk really or to tell the whole story you have. Maybe we can continue the other time. Thank you all. We'll be meet you in the other session. Back to you, Grant.
So yeah, we request Grant for the final reminders and announcements.
Yes, Grant.
Grant.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me check the script. Oh, sorry. So, can we have a group photo? Can I request everyone to turn on their videos? And we'll have a class group photo. May I ask for help from
Christina
for the video photo?
Great. Everybody can turn on their videos so we can take a quick group photo. I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. Okay. Smile, everyone. Hold your poses. All right, 1, 2. 1, 2, smile. One more time. 1, 2, smile. All right. Grant, did you want to tell everyone what's happening this afternoon?
So later we have a main session at 3 to 5 p.m. Manila time on the afternoon. So it will be in this regional dialogue. Oh, sorry. In this regional dialogue on policy and practice, presentations and messages from local communities, as well as national and regional actors will be lined up, followed by a roundtable discussion on an agenda for policy and action on wild foods in Asia. Discussion will revolve around the reflections on the regional situation of wild foods across the region and areas for synergy towards enabling environments that would support the transformation of our food systems into a more sustainable and inclusive one. We end here, but we hope to continue our conversations further moving forward. Coming together is surely a great start. It has been a great pleasure for me to be with you all today. And thank you very much.
Bye.
Okay, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for joining. See you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.